I like. What I like. Thank you very much.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Welcome again back to I Mix What I Like right here, WPFW 89.3 FM. I'm Jared Ball, your host. Happy to be here with you as always. I mixwhatilike.org for more information on the show and more. At I Mix What I Like at all your relevant social media. And again, welcome to the program. Before we get started, just a quick shout out. We don't want to act as if we don't know all the things that are happening in the world. Usually this show takes a more critical and fun, but critical look at the world, and we deal with some serious and mostly heavy topics on this program, and we're also usually hip hop based, but today we're taking a little departure from all of that. But we don't want to act like we don't know what's going on, and I want to just encourage people to check out Pan Bazooka News. In addition to all the things you've heard on Arise and Democracy Now, that some great programming this morning, but some very important conversations. But we don't want to act as if we're unaware of what's happening, for instance, in Southern Africa, in Azania or South Africa, where another people's rights activist was assassinated in the last few days. Sister and her daughter were almost killed. People struggling to deal with the land rights issue and economic issues that have been left unmet in the aftermath of apartheid. We don't want to, of course, forget all the things going on in terms of the reaction to Michael Brown and the killer of Jordan Davis and other victims of police brutality and vigilante violence here in the United States. And we certainly don't want to forget locally what's happening now. Dr. Haight, our usual co-host, is out handling the people's business and representing us, I know quite well, at the services going on today for Brother Lasana Mack. Very powerful brother who left us this past couple of weeks. So we send a tribute to him and his family and loved ones and all the people gathering there. So we don't want to just, don't want to act like that's not going on. But something we've never done is on this program in all the years I've been working with PFW and elsewhere is to pay tribute to one of my favorites, and to what I said at the top is my favorite album, Donny Hathaway's live album. And to do that, we're going to be joined this morning again by Dr. Fredara Hadley in just a minute. And I want to also let you know that next week, we're starting our pledge drive off right. Next week, we have the legendary songstress Lisa Fisher talking about departures from our regular programming, but I could not pass up the opportunity to have this sister on the program, one of the best voices in the world. And we can't wait to talk with her about the documentary she was involved in a little while ago, 20 Feet from Stardom, about backup singing and the politics and all the things that go into that. So I can't wait that's going to be a great program. So that's next week. Lisa Fisher right here, as well as Erica Blount-Danois will be back with us as well. But this morning, as I said, is a tribute to Donny Hathaway, particularly his live album. He would have been 69 on October 1st. And to join me and help me put all of this together is Dr. Fredara Hadley. She is a visiting assistant professor of jazz studies at Oberlin College. She is an ethnomusicologist who writes, teaches, and researches about black music. She is also the founder of Jooksi, a company that provides music-based class and tours of New York City. I can't wait to go on one and to bring my students. Welcome to the show, Professor Hadley. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
First of all, by the way, I had one class when working in grad school in ethnomusicology, and I think I went into the wrong field. I should have gone there. That seemed like a much more exciting field than the one I went into. I really enjoyed that one class, and it was just too late for me to change at that point. But let's get right to it if we could. I wanted to have you on because as I said at the top, I consider myself mildly informed on music, and I know it's all subjective, and for me to make these wild claims about this is the best album ever, and then usually a few drinks into a conversation, I'll admit that I think his version of what's going on is better than all of Marvin's, and make other all the kind of blasphemous kinds of statements, But what can you add to it as we take a brief moment between songs to talk a little bit? How do you think we should interpret or understand Donny Hathaway's place in all of this? And then if you can, anything particular about this particular album that you would want to add to the conversation?
I think, quite honestly, we cannot say enough about Donny Hathaway. And we hear these kind of accolades for all kinds of musicians and singers, but truly, I find, and I've always felt this way, as long as I've known, sort of the genius of Donny Hathaway, that he's an incredibly important figure in the 70s because we're coming out of civil rights. And as I think about this album in particular, I feel like he makes the social. Like, so social issues, you have songs like What's Going On, you have songs like Little Ghetto Boy in the Ghetto and all of this, but these songs are being performed in clubs, in music venues, right, where people go out for entertainment. But the beauty of the live album is that you hear people's response to the song, and they are completely with him. And in this day and age, I think we have this false dichotomy that, okay, if the song or the music is about something serious, then that belongs over there versus, club environments and party environments are for songs that are just about, booty shaking and drinking. Mm-hmm. And, I don't have a problem with songs about booty shaking and drinking. That's fine. But I find it remarkable that this was a moment where you could have all of that in the same space and people are completely, even a song like, the album ends with sort of this magnus opus, Voices Inside, and it's completely instrumental, and it's this really big piece, but it's still so socially informed, and people are still getting down to it. Matter of fact, he said, like, now it's time to get down, and I think that speaks to the artistry, the brilliance of the artistry of Donny Hathaway, the fact that he can pull these themes together for you and never lose the groove, never lose you as an audience, keeps you eating out the palm of his hand. And there are very few artists who can pull that off.
Right. Now, I want to get to this next track real quick because this one was not on the original album release, at least that I was introduced to, and I didn't come across this until many years later, and I was already many years late getting to this album. And one of the things I know that Hathaway is known for, is not just the songwriting, but the way he does other people's songs, the way he arranges other people's songs. We started with, we played Voices inside, as the bed in the intro. And then we heard What's Going On, and people who are not, clearly it is not that there is something wrong with Marvin's original, I'm not saying that at all, but there is something differently done with the arrangement under Donny Hathaway's control, and in this particular intimate type of setting as you were describing, it just takes it to another place. This is another one that I think, for some at least, this would be seen as blasphemy, understandably, is better than the original. And I want to go to that now, and it's Yesterday, originally recorded, of course, by the Beatles, but this is Donny Hathaway's version, that I think is just fantastic. So thank you all for joining us. This is our Mix What I Like's very special tribute and honor to Donny Hathaway, and particularly his 1972 live album. Professor Fredara Hadley is joining me this morning as well. Mike Nacella helping us out, making sure everything sounds as it's supposed to. But let's keep it moving. Let's get into this next track, Yesterday, this by Donny Hathaway. Back in a minute. Peace.
I mix what I like, what I like, what I like.
Yes, indeed. Man, poor Mike Nacella was in here having to deal with my outbursts. This is I Mix What I Like, WPFW 89.3 FM. I can't help it. Every time I hear it, I have the same reaction. That was Yesterday by Donny Hathaway, again, as we pay tribute to what would have been his 69th birthday on October 1st, right here again at I Mix What I Like. We're joined on the phone by ethnomusicologist, Professor Fredara Hadley, and we're greatly appreciative that she joins us again. By the way, I don't suppose the Bitter End is still a place that exists, and that might happen to be on one of your musical tours that you provide in New York. And at some point we have to have you back on just to talk about that. But I don't know.
The Bitter End is still here.
Okay.
Here, and it's still open, and I have been to a couple shows in the last year or so at the Bitter End, so you can certainly still go there. That's what's up.
And of course, he has, of course, Hathaway means a lot in this city as well. Howard University, Roberta Flack, a lot of venues around here that are some of which are even reopening that housed him in his performances. The shows were recorded. The two shows that became the live album that we're specifically paying tribute to this morning were recorded at the Troubadour in Hollywood and the Bitter End in New York. And we have to, should have not gone this long without letting people know, if they didn't already, that the players included Phil Upchurch on lead guitar, Cornell Dupree on another iteration on lead guitar, Mike Howard on guitar, Willie Weeks on bass, Fred White on drums, and Earl DeRuin on the conga. And as you were saying before we played that last track, I mean, even in that track, you can hear people, I mean, they're excited to be participating in this
Yes.
performance. And I think it adds greatly to it. I think it's part of what I was saying at the top, makes this my favorite album, the ability to hear people vibing and thoroughly loving it as they're witnessing it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, because if we're talking about African American music sort of in general, it is participatory. You know, that is a part of our performance aesthetic. It is communal. You know, you think about music in the Black church, you think about, you know, our HBCU band tradition, like that interaction is essential to knowing if the performance is successful or not. You know, they would tell you, you know, you ain't done nothing if ain't nobody dancing or ain't nobody moving. So to have an audible representation of that and I think this is part of the reason so many black performers push to do live albums, because it gets closer to that aesthetic truth. You know, James Brown obviously did his iconic live album at the Apollo, and his label, people thought he was crazy for that. Like, nobody wants to hear that. Nobody wants to buy that. but to ears that are well trained in that African American musical aesthetic, you know it when you hear it. You hear somebody that outburst that you were referring to, right? You know, that is an expectation that we have, and I think it's a large part of why this album is singular in that way. And also, just lost my train of thought. I hate it when that happens. But also, the other thing it tells you is that if you are unfamiliar with Donny Hathaway, because this is still fairly early on, this is in 1972,
right?
Early on in his solo career, hearing that enthusiastic, you know, response to him that in some points overtakes him, like on songs like "You Got a Friend," lets you know, okay, this man has fans. You know, there are people who are hanging on his every word. So if you don't know who Donny Hathaway is in 1972 and you put this album on, you quickly realize you're the one who's late to the party.
Right.
You know? And so I love all of that sort of messaging that comes that you just can't accomplish in the same way with a studio album.
So somewhere my comrade, Dr. Todd Stephen Burrows, is laughing again, because he always likes to remind me, which I had completely forgotten, and he likes to make fun of my love of Donny Hathaway by reminding me that he also did the theme song for Maude, the TV show Maude.
Yes. Hey, get those tracks.
I mean, I'm not hating. I mean, he produced this. He can do no wrong for me after this. But I just thought he just likes to make fun of me for that, because every time I bring up Donny, he's like, and then there's Maude. But you know, it's like, it's like, stop it.
But that theme song is jamming though.
No, of course. He hooked up the show. Probably the best part of the show was the theme song. But by the way, I should also let folks know that at imixwhatilike.org, just yesterday we posted a powerful interview that Dr. Burrows, Dr. Haidt, and myself did with Professor Frank Wilderson on Afro-pessimism and irreconcilable anti-blackness and police violence. A very powerful conversation. We encourage people to go check that out. You know, later on, of course, when, you know, anyway. But this is WPFW. I Mix What I Like is the show. I'm Jared Ball. Professor Fredara Hadley is joining me to help me pay tribute to Donny Hathaway. What I'd like to do, if it's okay with my man Mike, is I want to go to this PSA, take this quick break, and then we're going to come back with more of our tribute to Donny Hathaway. Some more songs, of course, that we want to get to. We can't get to everything, but we want to get to at least some of these songs to pay tribute to this album and keep the day moving. So don't go anywhere. Much more coming up right here at I Mix What I Like at WPFW 89.3 FM. Back in a minute. Peace. I Mix What I Like right here, WPFW 89.3 FM. Again, that's Donny Hathaway off the live album Carole King's classic You've Got a Friend. But as we've been making the point all morning with Professor Fredara Hadley joining us on the phone, is that as good as that song was in its original, as many hits as Carole King has produced for herself and other people, none of them sound like that. And that even just that groove he gets into at the end of that song is Donny and this band. And it makes it that, and the crowd participate. I mean, it's just Professor Hadley, welcome back to the show. And again, I think that song perfectly exemplifies, and he even could hear it. This might be a record hit. You hear him saying, like he could feel it in the moment, which, even for those of us, like I said at the top, who played in these little college bands that didn't go anywhere, and I really even shouldn't describe myself as playing the drums. I occupied the seat while other people did their thing. But I mean, even in those moments, I mean, we had little moments like that where the crowd is involved and everybody is, probably extremely nice and just, but it adds to it. And then I don't know. I mean, it's just, I'm at a loss for words. That's why I needed some help.
The crowd literally overtakes the song.
Right.
He's able to stop out. I think one thing that's important to remember is, the great Carole King wrote the song. But this was a current song when he covered it. I think, as we're so far from 1972 here in 2014,
right,
it's easier to kind of collapse all that historically. But the song just came out the year before.
Right.
So this was a song that was in the popular music lexicon. And then he takes it and he converts it to the genre of Donny Hathaway.
Right. The genre of Donny Hathaway. I like that.
And he makes it a part of the Donny Hathaway songbook in a way that only he can. And, of course, he had just done the duet with Roberta Flack. And that album came out earlier the same year.
Oh, right. That's right.
Right. And so all of this is happening in the same moment. And, you put Roberta and Donny on the same level as you do Marvin Gaye and
Tammy Terrell. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And Asher and Simpson, just or Sherelle and Alexander O'Neal later on, just these two voices that were meant to play together. And again, I think that you can't give enough respect to HBCUs for being places where people can get together and obviously nation build, but also nation build through art. And so you come to Howard University, Roberta Flack was already living in D.C., he comes from St. Louis, and, they come there and they meet in their kindred spirit. And then we get to be the beneficiaries of that.
Amen.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, and I hope the good people where I'm at now at Morgan State heard your point there about the beauty and the potential there in nation building. I think sometimes that message and that history gets lost. And even in the contemporary moment at our HBCUs, and I think Morgan definitely would do well to have heard that, to hear that. Mm-hmm. By the way, also, and I forgot to mention, I mean, you make the point about, You've Got a Friend, but What's Going On? Marvin Gaye's classic wasn't even a year old when Donny did his version.
1971 as well.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, he was right on top of it and putting his stamp on it. And I think, and again, people, I don't mind getting the mail, but I don't, please understand that me giving precedence or prominence to this album does not mean I don't appreciate all the others. Just because I think Mike was the best doesn't mean I don't appreciate LeBron. I just want, just please,
absolutely.
I'm just having fun with my island album as I described it.
And can I say something?
Please.
I think what it also shows is that Donny Hathaway was listening to the music around him.
That's
he was
right.
engaged. And what other songwriters and other musicians had to say is, to me, that's a hallmark of a supremely talented musician. You're not only concerned with your own stuff, but you're listening to the Beatles, you're listening to Carole King, you're listening to Marvin Gaye, and you're thinking about what they're doing in order to think about what you're doing. And I think that's massively important.
Right. And by the way, as I'm about to demonstrate in a song that is really my favorite, and again, this was not on the original album release of this live album, so I didn't get to this many years later, but I was so happy when I found that he had done this as part of these concert series, so to speak. This song also became, and people may remember who listen to the show regularly, this became my wedding song, the wedding song for my wife and I, or my wife and me. I always mess that up. I always mess that up. I gotta check on that. My mother she'll correct me later. Anyway, but it became our wedding song. This is my absolute favorite. And it's also a song, talk about paying attention to music being created. This I did not know until very recently was a song written by Leon Russell. And it's just done in such, as you said, Donny put it into his own genre. and made it his own. And when we come back, I want to ask Professor Hadley specifically about this song and more, but specifically, why is there so little written about Donny Hathaway? This is something I wanted to touch on with you before you left this morning. But this song right here is called "A Song for You." This goes out to my wife. This goes out to all the people in the world. This is just my favorite. This is just it. A classic redone, a Leon Russell classic redone by Donny Hathaway. So don't go anywhere. This is I Mix What I Like, WPFW 89.3 FM, A Song for You. Back in a minute. Peace.
I mix what I like.
Yes, A Song for You, Leon Russell's classic, performed there live by Donny Hathaway as we get ready to wrap up our birthday and honorific to Donny Hathaway. Would have been 69 on October 1st. We're paying tribute to his 1972 classic live album. Couple callers I just want to respond to very quickly. We got one who did want to remind us that even that beautiful piano playing, the falling piano keys, as I describe it, I don't know if it's got a better description somewhere else, is Leon Russell's himself, and Leon deserves credit for that beautiful song and the beautiful piano, and I don't want again to forget that. Ray Charles performed it. Whitney Houston covered it, and they've played with him, with Leon, that is, but this to me is just the best version of the song.
Absolutely. I mean, when people think about Donny Hathaway, they think This Christmas and A Song for You.
Right, exactly. Now I'm too much of a heathen to appreciate this Christmas, but you know, but no, you're right. I mean, it's still a beautiful song, and his rendition is still beautiful. And the other thing and the other caller we have to, at least one other caller we want to respond to, and we thank him for calling in. He said he called in. A brother said he was in Southeast Asia when this album came out, and this album helped a lot of brothers get through that Vietnam conflict. And I can only imagine because it's helped me in far less severe times to get through those moments. So I'm glad to hear that. Anyway, so we appreciate all those calls and all that. And again, at I Mix What I Like on all your relevant social media, and I Mix What I Like at gmail.com if you want to hit us up directly later on. We only have a couple of minutes left, Professor Hadley, and I got to get to one more song to close out the show. So I want to let you make any concluding comments that you'd like. But I did want to ask you specifically about two things. One, about the paucity of literature written on Donny Hathaway. It seems I had a hard time finding it, and then I found a couple of articles saying that there is so little written about him, and I'm wondering why you think that might be. And then also, Mike and I were talking off air. I had read somewhere that Stevie Wonder changed his style vocally and in terms of playing the piano after Donny Hathaway's emergence. And I wanted to know if you had any commentary or any anything you could add to that as to what extent he influenced Stevie and many others in music. And again, we thank you for joining us, and we will have you back before too long to talk about your work and about Jooksi in particular. But please, if you would, wrap us up.
Sure. I think to answer your first question first about why there is a paucity of literature about him, I actually think my theory is that it has something to do with the way he died, and we don't really know what to do with that.
Right.
We just don't. We don't know what to make of that, and if you could extrapolate that, make that a larger conversation about Black folks and mental health issues and all those kinds of things. And because, for artistically speaking, the body of work is certainly there, to really to rival just about anybody, really. But I just feel like he died so young, and we just, it's so strangely in our minds. That
are you saying it's like, you think it is like a stigma attached to suicide? And I've heard other rumors about what happened, but the idea of suicide is a stigma? Yeah.
I think it's a stigma, and when people don't know what to do with the situation, I think folks tend to ignore it. And Donny Hathaway, for all of his brilliance and his success, like, he was ours. You know what I'm saying? Like, he was Black folks. And so it's interesting. Compared to this, I was reading a bio about him, I think it was on Rolling Stone, and it wasn't condescending, but there was something a little dismissive about it, because I feel like what he was doing was so steep, even with his classical training, which is very evident in his work. Right. It was so steep in Black tradition. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't, even when he sang a popular song by Leon Russell, who was white, or Carole King, or the Beatles, or whatever, it became so wonderfully and deliciously Black that it didn't have that sort of crossover appeal that other artists were able to sort of garner, like a Stevie Wonder, for instance, or even a Roberta Flack. And so I think that also plays into it. a little bit. And that was a long answer to your first question.
No, that's, I mean, I'm asking you I'm asking you to do too much in too little time. That's the problem. But yeah. Yeah.
So all of that plays into it. And then as far as Stevie, although I don't know specifics, what I do know about Stevie is that he was another, obviously a master musician, but one who was always listening and never thought himself too good or too far above to keep his ear to what was going on around him. And when he, Aretha Franklin, Stevie Wonder, all of these are people who understood genius when they heard and they felt it. And they all give Donny Hathaway credit for that. And I think what Donny Hathaway shows us, again, is that there is this space for us to be unapologetically Black and to talk about what's going on with Black, literally what's going on with Blackness. And there's still room for love and to keep that in a space where the people can reach it and the people can receive it and interact with it. And so I think that's something that the importance of his ability to do that cannot be overstated.
You know, and the next time we do something like this, I think Aretha's Live at the Fillmore might have to be the album too, by the way. I think that was another incredible album. And according to the liner notes, Ray Charles just happened to be walking by and went in and heard she was playing with King Curtis and the Memphis Horns and Billy Preston and said, I just got to join, and went up on stage and did Spirit in the Dark with her just off the top. And I was like, what? I was like, okay, anyway. But listen, I greatly appreciate you helping me here, bring some context to this. Professor Fredara Hadley, ethnomusicologist at Oberlin College and founder of Jooksi, a musical tour operation there in New York. We are definitely going to build on that. I promise you that very soon.
Right.
I'm way too late on that, but thank you again very much. Just that. Thank you very much. I appreciate you having joined us this morning. And a shout out to Greg Tate, Katia Stitt, our wonderful program director here, encouraged me to check him out when I was thinking about putting the show together. And he said, nah, you got to talk to my sister Fredara. So, I appreciate that as well. So thank you all. Thank you all very much. I've really appreciated this short hour. Thank you very much.
Peace.
All right, folks, this is I Mix What I Like, WPFW 89.3 FM. And by the way, I hope this issue to the extent that it's true as far as Lasana Mack is concerned, that this stigma of suicide doesn't prevent us from following up on what happened to this brother and keeping him in our hearts and minds and supporting the work that he was looking to build with Black collective economics. So a shout out to him, shout out to all the people who are there supporting his services today, and thanks to Dr. Haight for representing us over there as well. Mixwhatilike.org for more. As Fred Hampton used to say, we always say peace to you if you're willing to fight for it. And this last song by Donny is a tribute to all the good people in the world, past and present, and those coming up in the future. So don't go anywhere. Much more coming up on WPFW. We got Latino Media Collective later on. We got Community Watch and Comment next. We got the Most Dangerous Show on radio later on with Brother Nightwolf. We got Don't Forget the Blues with Ida Campbell at 12 o'clock. So a lot more coming up. Don't go anywhere. But this is Donny Hathaway's version of Someday We'll All Be Free. I Mix What I Like, WPFW. Peace if you're willing to fight for it. Catch you in the whirlwind, everybody.
I mix what I like.